Spoiler warning, we are talking about everything Jedi Survivor today. Star Wars Jedi Survivor is the follow-up to Respawn's 2019 entry, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which was a very straightforward and enjoyable Star Wars game. It really felt like the franchise was on good footing within the gaming space, though it did show some growing pains. Lots of backtracking, underwhelming customization, yet so much heart. Like, wow, did they really get off to a good start with this one. It was only up from there, and damn do they deliver. Just when the frame rate isn't screeching to a halt, something we're going to talk about a little bit later on. For now, let's dive into what I found to be the most engaging element of this game is the story. Okay, so like halfway through the game, I felt like the story was shaping up to be a pretty decent adventure, yet maybe a bit underwhelming. Right when I thought it was winding down, they just smack you right upside the head with this massive plot twist that just, I didn't see it coming at all. I don't know how others feel about it, but me personally, the twist shocked the hell out of me. I felt that Bode being a Jedi turned Imperial spy really helped ground the story. The game has had a very different tone than the first one, which is fine, but it did feel a bit detached. The plot twist really helps drive home the more personal aspect of a betrayal. Almost feel like a bit betrayed yourself. It's such a compelling twist, and it's one that really displays why he did what he did. And overall, I felt like it really lent to the game's much darker tone. You hear a lot of people say that the best villains are usually the ones you sort of agree with. They just tend to go about it the completely wrong way. And that's kind of what you get with this game. This twist was a relief as a lack of a really compelling central antagonist, but something I felt was kind of missing. Dagan Gera, while as great as he is, was lacking a bit of depth. Now the game deals with several different boss encounters. Dagan Gera's are some of the most epic. The dude is just super menacing looking, and he serves as some of the game's best highlights. His character gives us our first on-screen introduction to the High Republic era content, something I wish they had dove into a bit more here, but I do see why that was maybe left out for the sake of feeling too bloated. But it does give us a glimpse into how that era functioned, and I hope they choose to expand on it in the next entry. Some of the other bosses were also a pretty good time and offered up a pretty fun challenge. Ravis was fun to fight with his multi-staged encounter, and the first fight with Bode, after learning a huge truth, left me feeling as stunned as Cal as he gets thrown off the side of a cliff, landing on the ground in total disbelief at what just happened. And I can't forget the obligatory yet totally cool boss battle against Vader. You really do play as Seer in her prime. Now, what little time we do get with Seer throughout the story is made up for in this sequence. And seeing Eno Cordova in person was pretty cool, though I felt he was a bit underutilized. The relationship between Bode and Cal is also very nicely built up. I did not anticipate Bode being such a central part of the story, and that's really genius of the marketing to leave him completely out of almost all of it. And really, Dagan Gera ended up being more of a red herring than anything. The love story between Cal and Marin is also compelling enough, and it didn't feel like it was too forced, no pun intended, and the supporting cast all add like a pretty fun angle to the story, as well as the characters you come across on Kobo adding a lot of personality to the environment. So if you couldn't tell at this point, I love the story. It was a bit uneven, but ultimately it ties everything together in the end, and it really sets itself apart from the typical Star Wars antics, which is kind of more how the first game felt. It kind of felt like more of the usual Star Wars experience. So the experience is great, but I couldn't have gotten there without the game's expanded yet sort of hollow upgrade system. Jedi Survivor is like the God of War Ragnarok of Star Wars games, a game that is bigger, better, and bolder. Games like Call of Duty 4 and Borderlands 2 really expanded on what was offered in every way and really defines the series' formula for the foreseeable future. For the most part, that's what this game does. Taking cues from its contemporaries and reworking those elements for its own systems is what really makes this game unique. I mean, how cool is it to yet again get a map that is needlessly complicated and ends up being kind of a pain in the neck more than anything? But it still is improved, as are a lot of things. But as for those portions of the game that I said were a bit more hollow, let's talk about the upgrade system. Now, none of the upgrades that I ever got felt so significant that I was encouraged to change up my playstyle or lightsaber stance. While fun to play around with, I never felt any incentive to get experimental with different weapon combos and stances, though I did change my stances here and there to get an idea on how all of them play for a certain amount of time. I ultimately stuck with the double-bladed saber as my consistent one. I pretty much just stuck with what got me the results I needed, and that was it. Not to mention that the skill tree and perk system give the impression of depth more than anything, and are a huge missed opportunity, really. For example, the abilities not often adding a whole lot of variety to the combat. When I think of how Ragnarok expanded its gameplay into one of the best systems around, I think of how fluidly you are able to rotate through the different weapons and the button combos, making you feel like a master of each weapon. Though it's not what it could have been, the combat is still a really fun time, it's engaging, and the feedback is awesome. The animation work is also really good here. The game really makes you feel like a badass. I mean, they're pretty close to perfecting lightsaber combat with this one, but what they aren't close to perfecting is the level design. While still still really fun to play. Respawn Entertainment is giving Crash Bandicoot a run for his money when it comes to the amount of time dedicated to platforming in this game. It's fun, but I really wanted more time with the lightsabers. I got lost so often because this game doesn't guide the player in a natural way, and the level design often feels pretty unbalanced. It is a good thing though that the levels look amazing. You just can't always tell when you're able to run up a wall or something. The game's graphics are totally next gen and it looks pretty incredible. This really sets the bar for Star Wars games, and while it's going to be pretty hard to beat Horizon Forbidden West in terms of visual quality, this one is pretty far up there. Each planet looks and feels unique. Kobo is super fun to explore, and it was cool to visit Coruscant again, even if it was pretty short-lived. I did feel that the Tanalorr bits were pretty underwhelming, but I do get why maybe it didn't take center stage. I really feel like Tanalorr and Cal's temptations with the dark side are going to be something that's explored more in the next entry. Another part I really enjoyed was the crew adopting Bode's daughter. I have a feeling they're going to give Cal an apprentice at some point here, so I'm excited to see how she develops within the crew and how much more they can expand on the gameplay within the next game. Now, the last portion I want to talk about before we get into the really nasty bits is the customization. The game lets you go wild with customizing Cal, BD1, and your weapons. You can change Cal's hair and clothes, as well as give BD1 a total makeover. In addition, you can fully customize every bit of your lightsaber, from the blade color to the level of wear and tear it has. They went all out in this department, and it really delivered a fun experience. You can even collect plant life around the maps and put them in your rooftop garden, so that's pretty sweet. Tying the gameplay with the story, you have a very ambitious, near perfect offering of a Star Wars game. Let's just make sure it runs better next time, okay? This was a bit of a bummer. The technical performance of this game has been improved with some further patches, but the PC performance is just unacceptable. I played this on a PS5, and though it wasn't perfect, it ran pretty smooth for the most part. In my notes, I have a crash counter, and through my 20+ hour playthrough, this game crashed on me 3 times, not to mention the countless visual bugs. This typically happened when I was in the open world or had performed too many actions at once that the game couldn't keep up. Pop-in was a minor issue as well, sometimes hurting the cutscenes. Photo mode was another area I experienced this odd glitch where the character models would change from the pose that I wanted after entering the photo mode, ruining what I intended to take a photo of. That and the dead stormtroopers would reset to these floating T poses, which was kind of funny, I guess. For the most part, the glitches were visual, and it didn't kill the experience for me, though it was kind of disappointing to see. I mean, it really just ruined the immersion ever so slightly. But I'm also not that picky. I actually forced myself to play through the entire story of Cyberpunk 2077 on PS4 because I couldn't just wait till the PS5 version launched. I had to convince myself that it was a good game. In case you haven't heard of it, it was kind of a train wreck. I feel for those who have had their experience ruined by the PC performance, and it sucks that, again, we have an incredible game marred by technical issues that could have been fixed had the game just been delayed. But that's the state of AAA gaming these days. That is a topic that has been beaten to death, yet it still keeps happening. I don't feel a whole lot of incentive to play the New Game Plus. The offering with New Game Plus versus just continuing to explore the planets is not something I feel really justifies it, especially since you're gated from having a lot of the force powers when you restart. It's just not something I really care to do. I want to explore the world and see what the rest of the game has to offer. There's a ton of side content, and this game successfully builds on the foundation laid by Fallen Order. They're so close to creating the perfect Jedi Simulator with this, and I'm excited to see where they take Cal and his friend's journey next. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Star Wars Jedi Survivor. It was a phenomenal game, and I think it's a really fun time if you can look through a lot of the technical issues of the game, but I do know some people are less forgiving than myself. But again, that also does fall on EA to ensure that these games are being released when they're ready to be completed, but it's also EA, and I don't think it's really going to change, unfortunately. It just sucks to see that the really good single-player outings are the ones that are kind of shit in the bed when it comes to technical performance. Let me know what you thought about this in the comments down below. If you have completed this, what did you think about the story and how it played out? I would love to know what you thought about the twist. How did you like how they handled the High Republic stuff? I thought that was super cool. Either way, I think it's a really cool experience for somebody looking for something new out of the Star Wars genre. Something that Andor did really well is give audiences something new to watch. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Let me know any video topics you want to see about or hear about in the future. Check out the next one up by my head, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.